Hello, everyone, and this is my review for Impact Wrestling on April the 6th, 2017, and this is an interesting one. This was definitely an interesting week to everything because they put a lot of focus on the commentators again. I'm not gonna lie to you. I am not a big fan of what they're doing here, but I guess it's getting some of these guys into into like a more dominant picture. I guess at that point, I don't know on that side of everything. But let's just go. Let's just go right from the beginning of the show. They actually didn't have any kind of intro or anything to Impact Wrestling. As you know how most of the time you have this full intro saying that Impact Wrestling's on, or Raw's on, or SmackDown's on, or NXT, or Ring of Honor, or any of them. They usually have something. No, they cut right into the action with Eli Drake going up against Caleb Connolly. All right, match. Like I said, just no intro to the show. It's like, yeah, right to it. I mean, it's not a bad thing to have a match right off the bat. I'm completely okay with it. It was just a little. It does throw you off just a little bit because usually it's like Impact Wrestling, show you a bunch of the people that are going to be on there, and then get into the action. I was okay with the aspect of the match beginning the show. Is just it threw you off just a little bit on the way they decided to go off and doing it versus normal intro, and then what you normally get on most wrestling shows would be a promo. I think it would have come off. Actually, I'm not going to even think about that one. I'm just okay with the aspect that they did a match, and it just threw you off a little bit that they had no extra intro to the show to go along with it. Right after this match, Jeremy Borash and Josh Matthews get into it again at the commentator's desk. Bruce Pritchard comes out, says he's had enough. Each of you guys pick a team, and they will face off next week. We'll find out who knows more and everything in that sense. And, of course, they trash talk a little bit more, and they said they'll pick their teams later in the show. The only sad thing about this one is it ended up being the main event of the show on that one. I'll talk about that a little bit later, though. After this, you had the Knockouts Gauntlet match. Basic gauntlet that you would typically get from Impact Wrestling, a Reverse Battle Royal, or not Reverse Battle Royal. Reverse Battle Royal was them doing everybody outside the ring, and then after half of them get in the ring, then they do the Battle Royal thing. It was really complicated. But they did more of Royal Rumble style, Gauntlet style, where initially over the top rope until the last two, and then it's pinfall or submission. It comes down to ODB and Madison Rayne as the last two. First of all, this is for a number one contendership for the Knockouts title. I'm kind of shocked they didn't go with the one person from LAX or Brandy Rhodes in this one, because those are kind of the two established storylines. Because I forget her name off the top of my head. I will make sure to remember it the next time around. But the one lady from LAX had a thing with Rosemary from the week before during the tag team title match, so you had something there and everything in that sense, and you had everything with Brandy Rhodes. But no, they ended up going with ODB in this case, and it also seemed like even though Madison Rayne had been working face as a commentator for the longest period of time, she's kind of just gone full heel again as well. She was acting very heelish in this match. No reason outside the fact that she is Josh Matthews' wife, and he's acting heelish to go along with everything. I guess that's why they're going to make her a heel. I don't know on that side of everything. But they decided to go with ODB in this one. She is definitely one of the more over knockouts within Impact Wrestling. So it'll be interesting to see how a match with ODB and Rosemary comes off down the road. After this one, James Storm comes out, and apparently he's just dropping the whole DCC thing. The walkout from the week before was just him walking out on both Eddie Kingston and Bram, and now he is the cowboy again, just dropping everything all together. He cuts a promo about wanting to get the world title again. This does bring out Bram and Eddie Kingston to go along with it. Both sides kind of cut a good promo, saying like Eddie Kingston going off on like why is he. Like, James Storm, you lied to us and everything like this. It's like, what do we need to do? And it's like, you put on this suit, you put on this mask, everything in that sense. Storm goes off on both of them. It's like, hey, who bought you this stuff? Who got you going with everything? And this is how you're going to thank me for everything in that sense. This does eventually lead to James Storm laying out both guys before he ends out leaving before just leaving in general. Not a bad promo segment. It'll be interesting to see if this is the way that they're going to try to bring James Storm into a world title picture, or this is just his next program will be with Bram and Eddie Kingston, and if he's going to have a tag partner or something in that sense to go along with it. Who knows if that's going to be the case, or if it's just going to be 2-on-1 situations. Up next was Andrew Everett cutting a promo backstage on Trevor Lee and Shane Helms. Both of them interrupt, and they basically say, you'll never beat Trevor Lee, but you have another opportunity to get closer to the X Division title if you win this triple threat, but if you lose, you're never going to get a match again. The weird thing about this segment, I guess it's just a little bit weird on the aspect of it being on a higher production, or supposed to be a higher production wrestling show. The aspect of you could hear in the background crowd noise and them doing moves inside the ring. Like, it was really close to that aspect. You would figure they would film this during a time that nothing was happening out there, or like before the shows even go on the air. That way it just doesn't sound weird or something in that sense, because if you think about it, like right after this promo, the next thing that they do is have this match. So you would assume nothing would be going on in the ring. But apparently, when they filmed it, there was something going on and everything in that sense. But it just came off a little weird on that one. It threw you off just a little bit. But otherwise, decent promo from all sides. You had, next after this, Andrew Everett versus Marshe Rockett versus Suicide. This was a decent match. Andrew Everett going over. They're continuing this storyline with Andrew Everett and Trevor Lee. Decent match. Some good moves from all sides. Andrew Everett goes over with a shooting star press to get the victory. Not a bad match. Not a bad match. Up next, and they promoted this throughout most of the night, was the aspect of Davey Richards going up against Eddie Edwards in a last man standing match. And this was a good match. This was a good match. Kind of weird on the aspect of there wasn't a lot of like attempts at the count in every way at any given time. It was more of like whenever they decided they had had enough, and it's like go ahead and go for the count at that point. But otherwise, very good match. Angelina Love and I forget Eddie Edwards' wife's name. I know she was in the independent scene. Again, I'm forgetting names. I'm horrible with names, and I'll try to remember them better down the road. But Eddie Edwards' wife gets in there and goes after Angelina Love. I love the ending where Davey Richards wraps the chain around his foot to give the finishing blow, but hesitates, and then Angelina Love says, if you won't do it for yourself, do it for me, and then he kicks Eddie Edwards straight in the head to get the victory. I thought this was a good last man standing match. But all sides, they go all out in their maneuvers, and they are trying to make it look like that they were really trying to take each other out to make sure that they would stay down. Thought it was good. I personally thought it was good. This was a long match, too. I think it started, like, right at the top of the hour and then went on for, like, another 25, 30 minutes or so in that case. I thought, like I said, good match. Good match on this one. After this, LAX has a celebration. They just are kind of like somewhere else in Orlando having a celebration of winning the tag team titles and what was going to be next for LAX and everything in that sense. No, not a bad segment. Not a bad segment for that one. Alberto El Patron went up against some guy. I didn't catch his name, and they might have said it briefly on there, but Alberto El Patron wins in a squash match, calls out Lashley after the match. Nothing happens. And then Ali and Braxton Sutter have a promo backstage. They get interrupted by Sienna and KM, they kind of start going on this argument and everything to go along with it. Karen Jarrett comes in, basically makes a match for next week. They also have this extra promo in it, and they show they do show like an even bigger guy, and they have like Sienna walking around with pictures of Ali and Braxton Sutter, and saying it's like they thought they could live happily ever after, and but now like destruction's going to come their way next week. You had another one of those promos, and then it's going to be showing up for next week, probably somewhere in this mixed tag match to go along with it. It should be an interesting way going, and it'll be interesting to see who that person is going to actually be. And this does bring us to the main event of the night, which was Jeremy Borash and Josh Matthews picking teams for next week. I am not a big fan of this. Like I said, it's probably going to get it probably gets some of these guys into a scene. Some of these guys don't necessarily need to be there, but otherwise, good going in some of those cases. So Josh's team, as they bring out one person each time. So Josh Matthews brings out Lashley. Okay, Lashley comes out. So JB responds with Alberto El Patron. So okay, you got that storyline going in there. Up next, he brings out Bram. So you have Bram in there, and then it's not like, and then after this, it's kind of where JB goes in and he starts bringing people in that aren't necessarily a part of the main roster of there. So you're bringing in new people again in this one. So he brings out Chris Adonis, aka Chris Masters, for people who watched him in WWE way back when. And he comes out there, no promos or anything on this side. You're just kind of getting each guy making a team out of this. Up next, Josh brings out Eli Drake and Tyrus, but he only announces Eli Drake. But Tyrus comes out, like even Bruce Pritchard says, like, well, this only has the teammates out here. What are you doing out here? And Josh says, that is my team, and he tells them to get them. And they go ahead and attack Alberto El Patron and Chris Adonis. And then JB brings out Matt Morgan, and then you get them cut backstage to to not necessarily a limo, but a car coming in, or a car sitting there, and someone getting out of it as they go off the air, because he had said that because JB had been saying throughout the night, he's bringing in a former world champion and everything. In that sense, he's coming to the arena. But what do? They cut before they even show the guy, and it's like, go ahead and go to ImpactWrestling.com to find out who this fourth person is. It's like, really, now we got to go to their website to just find out who it is. And for people who don't go to it, they get to be surprised next week. But for the aspect of doing this review, I decided to go to ImpactWrestling.com. It ends up being Global Force Wrestling's world champion, Magnus. Yes, Magnus is back within Impact Wrestling, and he is going to be the fourth member of the team. I'm not a big fan of this whole JB versus Josh thing. Man, maybe it's because I've seen this once before, and yeah, I had bits and pieces of being good with Michael Cole and Jerry the King Lawler a long time ago, but I kind of don't want the commentators to have such a big spot, I guess, in everything. I want them to call the action and be like their own characters, but not necessarily be the focal point of the show, which is what they really have been making JB and Josh Matthews this entire time, a focal point of the show. Like, they're arguing at all times, no matter what, even to the point of like it not even being a part of the match that they're calling. If it was more of them, arguing over points about the people that were in the match, different story. But it isn't, and it's just coming off. It's not coming off that good, at least in my own personal opinion of everything. But this match should be an interesting one next week. You have basically, for JB's side, Alberto El Patron, who had been just coming in since the new aspect of Impact Wrestling started, and three guys you hadn't seen on Impact Wrestling for quite some time. And then everybody on Josh's team is basically everybody who's already been there before in some way. It should be an interesting match. Hopefully it's not a bad match by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't like the aspect that you had to go to their website just to find out who the fourth member is, because you know there's going to be a good chunk of people who don't go to the website and might not even watch a person do a review like this, and they won't even know until next week who it actually ends up being. So, yeah, interesting Impact this week. Interesting one. It has some good points to it. I'm not a big fan of this whole Josh Matthews, Jeremy Borash being the focal point of the show in the way that they have it. But interesting Impact, and like I said, it did have some good points to it. That Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards match was really good, and like most of the matches that you saw tonight were at least decent matches. They were done well. They were done well, and they weren't horrible. It was just like other aspects to it that kind of dragged the show down a little bit to go along with everything. But there's still good stuff to see within Impact Wrestling. So, with that being said, that is my review this week for Impact Wrestling. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.